April 10th, welcome everyone. A very successful weekend of racing this weekend. Sam Appleton winning Challenge Melbourne. Quite a dominating performance actually in very cold conditions. 1:11 off the bike, although it's a pretty little short run. So truthfully probably 1:12, but that's not too bad. Tim Reed in third, Laura Siddall, a very last minute decision to go and race, a heavy week of training, and then on Friday afternoon decided to fly from a home base in Christchurch, hop on a plane, arrive on Friday evening, prep on Saturday, go race on Sunday and get a second place. A super performance on her continued journey. So super weekend of racing from many of the pros. Some great racing in Florida. Had some very good performances down there. A couple of people that got very unlucky with a series of flat tires and some other components, and we had a whole host of people that got very, very cold at the Napa Hits race. Even made the newspaper. I think 30 people had hypothermia up there, so very challenging. But I do think that we have to give some love and attention to Jordan Blanco last week, winning her age group, going halfway around the world to win Ironman South Africa, and will be on her way to the Hawaii Ironman once again. A tremendous performance, and every year we age, we get faster. Well, I'm sweeping myself in there, and that's not true, but Jordan does, which is super. So today, guys, I want to talk about the race build. And we call the race build, really, it's race-specific training, and some of the shift in mindset, the evolution in mindset, and the plan of much of what you guys collectively will be going through over the course of the season. So the headline news, and as we get into this, is one thing that's very interesting that I don't think many people know about Purple Patch, and one thing that's actually very important to us, that of all of the athletes on Purple Patch, if we look at their journeys, there are actually 2 or 3 people, but next to no people who have exactly the same journey throughout the year. And that's as much as this build. So when I talk about this on the race build today, we have to appreciate that it's somewhat modular. So I'm going to go through the middle of the bell curve of what a race build will look like in the themes of the week a little bit, and why we're putting those into the themes of the week, so that you can understand some of the mindset. But how it's actually applied to you is customized based on your specific journey, when your races are, and when that applies relative to, let's say you're getting ready for an Ironman in June, when your race maybe leading up to the Ironman is, and we might shift in a modular fashion how we apply those blocks or those themes or personalities of the week. So we have to have a starting point, whether we're applying this to one of my professional athletes, whether we're applying it to one of my individually coached athletes, or we're applying it to groups of athletes who are going on their own individual journey and are on the performance program. It still needs to be applied to the individual athlete in a modular and customized way. So that's very important. But let's talk a little bit about this module of training, because as we go through, and by summary, knowing that any athlete that I coach, that Purple Patch leads, will want to go through some form of postseason where we go through the skills-based component. We'll want to go through really where we're coming out of now, which is that pre-season work, heavy endurance, a lot of high speed, a lot of sort of platform building block work as we talk about it, and then transition into a little bit of sharpening. And then the majority, 50 to 60% of their season for most athletes, is spent on race-specific training, actually fine-tuning and dress rehearsing for the key events of the year. And so much, it's so critical that the driving philosophy, if we think about building the physiology in the first 3 phases I talked about, then we get ready for the race. So what we're talking about here for most athletes is the cycles of work that we go through in race-specific training. And so I want you guys to understand the mindset behind it, what we're doing this year, and some of the changes. So in order to do that, I think that we have to talk with full ego, with full appreciation of what's sort of the magic source of Purple Patch, what's some of the heartbeat of the methodology that I believe enables our athletes to be so successful. And swim, bike, and run. We're going to say underlining this is one small supporting element, strength and conditioning, very, very important. But swim, bike, and run, I think that there are a few features of our overall training methodology that when we think about everything we throw at you guys, what bubbles up to the surface of being important. On the swim, I think it's super for an athlete to have a big platform of swim fitness and resilience. And I think that is part of the special sauce. We love athletes to be very swim fit. And I'm always hesitant if I ever see a coach preaching underdoing the swim, because I believe that the sport is swim, bike, run. So resilience and fitness is huge. A big platform of fitness is important. I think that we do a very good job of breaking down high value swimming for athletes that are maybe not experienced swimmers, breaking it down to help you guys retain form under fatigue with shorter intervals. We embed a lot of experience and familiarity and skills and sessions that recreate and prepare you for the actual experiences of open water swimming. And we help you actually get ready for open water swimming with the actual construction of the intervals that we do. Just a case in point, maximal swimming into steady state endurance type work. So all of those combined, there's nothing secret about it. There's nothing magically special, but I do think it has the backbones of that's part of our swimming program that is very, very good, that helps you guys be prepared for the swim. The bike, which from people from the outside of Purple Patch, when they look at Purple Patch riders, and especially at the pro end, because those are the ones that are under the microscope more, we're known for creating very, very strong riders. So what's the special sauce there? What's the magic sauce in our bike riding? Well, it's central to our training program. It's very important. I think that our end of range training that you guys have been educated on frequently, so having very low cadence strength endurance work as well as very high cadence work, highly valuable. The insistence on the development of tools and awareness of how to actually ride the bike. The range of intensities, we stay away from monotonous training on the bike. And the heavy focus on race-specific simulations to really get you guys ready creates very strong, very resilient athletes with an awareness of the tools and helping you get through the bike ride while, yes, lifting the bike performance, but I believe actually opening the gateway to having good run performance. On the run, we believe in a platform of resilience, nothing revolutionary there. I think our special sauce comes with our ever more shifting emphasis towards strength-based running. A lot of the focus that you've already started to see this year all the way through from the very short high-power strength-based running now bleeding into the consistent, strong, hard work. So strength-based running not to become better at hill running, but actually help transfer better form, better resilience, slightly longer stride length with fast leg speed in flat running. Much like the bike, the variance of speed that we have on the run and our belief in frequency and really trying to embed efficiency in time crunched athletes like many of you guys are for the very busy athletes, almost hiding run volume in the overall program, I think helps you guys retain health, retain consistency, but not arrive to your races overcooked because every single week you have to go and do a 2 or 3 hour long run that's highly monotonous, that's dragging the leaves athletes, running, yes, lots of miles, yes, being fit, but not really having the ability to retain good form under fatigue, which is so much a part of the resilience of Ironman and half Ironman and even Olympic distance racing. So we have special sauce. We have the things that I think are the headline news that make the program really good. But at the end of each year, and I've talked to the group about this before, there's also always an opportunity to look back in reflection and say, okay, we did really well, but where are the elements that we feel like we can improve? What were some of the things, the common traits that we saw athletes go through that maybe we can refine and improve upon and maybe become a little more predictable in performance? And so while echoing, yes, X, Y, and Z was good, where can we improve? Well, there are a few things that were really important. We know that athletes did very, very well in early season racing. And some of the elements in early season racing were really present, were strength, endurance, hill-based running, low cadence riding. So very, very good. We know that athletes really glean the benefits of the strength endurance work. But I felt like as we went through, one of the consequences of that over the last couple of seasons is maybe we lost, as people strayed towards becoming more comfortable at low cadence, they lost the ability to capture the same type of power at high cadence. And so that was an element that we said, okay, we can go back and we can try and go a little bit more of the high cadence, high power work. I felt as a general trend that some athletes, a few athletes, a percentage of athletes became a little plateaued, a little stale in the middle to the end of the season and didn't get that pop through the end of their race-specific training that maybe they had as they were finishing the preseason and into the race-specific phase. So they started to feel a little bit stale, a little bit of the grind. So that forces me to take a little bit of a look in the mirror and say, hang on, how can we retain this freshness that's the heartbeat of my belief system? How can we retain that freshness at the same time having you experienced a little bit of a plateau as we're going through to these months ahead of us in the course of the season? And so when we take a step back and look, I thought, okay, as I look at the race-specific season, one of the things that starts to happen is it actually becomes a little bit repetitive in personality over the course of many months. And some of the elements that I really felt added to the high performance in early season racing start to dissipate in our previous race-specific builds. We started to remove some of the strength endurance. We started to remove some of the strength-based running. We started to remove the demand of athletes to actually get off the bike and get to race pace, whether it's half Ironman or Ironman, get to race pace very quickly. And so I felt like it left some athletes not running to their trained potential because they just couldn't get up to speed when it actually came to race day. So with all of that combined, it sort of bubbled up a question. It brings the question to the coach, to me, the leader. How do we retain the special sauce, but keep it going throughout the course of the season while enabling athletes to stay fresh emotionally and physically and enable a little bit of repeatedly good performance? So a bit more predictability and a bit more familiarity for you guys to say, I've gone through this cycle, I understand the cycle, I understand the work that's there. My energy can go into actually executing the session versus trying to always relearn. And I'm not getting there thinking, I want this session to be over. So the headline news of the answers that I arrived at was I wanted to, at the course of this season, to be more patient with the overall load so far as endurance and volume, which is the common way of saying it. I wanted to be patient with volume in the early season, the postseason, the preseason. With that, I wanted to shift to an even greater emphasis on speed. So I repeatedly talked to you guys about power, about speed, about sprinter's mentality, form over force, but doing things fast, neurological training, and really try and build a framework of greater capacity, hard work, but at a much reduced volume. And then once we'd gone through, depending on athlete, pro athlete, all the way down to people new to the program, I felt like we could create cycles of training which were, give or take, depending on the layout of your season, somewhere between 9 and 13 weeks, that enabled the retention of strength, endurance, bike and run, enabled you to be really familiar with the cycle, have you bank a bunch of miles or endurance early in the program and maybe come back to the miles and endurance in the middle of the cycle so that you arrive feeling really confident you've done enough work, but not having to visit those miles every single week. Really good for athletes that are time crunched, and ensure that you don't get flat. And by judging it and banking it throughout the course of most of our seasons racing, how the vast majority of all of you athletes build your seasons, and we have that, so I spent lots of time looking at how the season's portrayed. knowing that people could go through at least 2 cycles of this type of work over the course of 50 to 60% of their year. And for some of the more experienced elite athletes that are racing key races spread more across the year, aka the pros, maybe even hit 3 cycles of this work, but enable you to not feel stale and to enable to gain freshness. So that's the mindset, that's the philosophy, and that's where for many of us, some of us have already entered into this approach. Some of us have already gone through a cycle of this program. But the middle of the bell curve, we start to enter this type of cycle of training right around now. And so with that, it's timely to talk about it. So as I said at the start, a lot of this depends on the layout of your races. So I don't want you to scribble with a piece of paper and then go and look at your training and say, you've messed me up, I'm different. Think about this as weeks that are modular weeks, that have personalities that are applied relative to your schedule. But the personality, the rhythm and the intent is important. Let's imagine that we start each cycle, each continual cycle with a low stress week, a week off. So we use Jordan, who's live on the call. She just had a week off. She finished her race, she had a week off. She's now ready to start her next cycle in this side. So as we go through, the general theme goes through something like this. We go through a building familiarity, progressive week of training, because we should have come off a relatively light week. And we've finished that week with the opportunity to start banking miles. I talked about that earlier. A great opportunity over the course of 6 or 7 days that you can actually put together some confidence building running endurance. One of the big complaints, one of the big fears for an athlete, am I going to be ready to go and run an Ironman marathon? And so we help you get ready over the course of about 7 days. We have you bank 3 or 4 big endurance days safely within focus of what your musculoskeletal system can handle. But we have you go and do a little bit of a run block. And then we finish that run block the second week into what we call the riding tour. Now, if you're not a time-crunched athlete, if you have all the time in the world, if you're Laura Siddall based down in New Zealand, that will mean going to ride 3 days in a row, and we send you off to Egypt and say, come, go, leave at dawn, come back at dusk and accumulate a whole bunch of miles. That doesn't really fit with us, normal working people. But what we can do is have a little bit of a banking ride, maybe 2 rides over the course of a Saturday and Sunday, accumulate some miles. So we start the cycle with a couple of weeks of endurance build. Very good platform, a little bit of lower stress, and the rest of the sessions we get to actually start introducing or reintroducing some of the elements of strength endurance that are so powerful that we know that are important. So we're a couple of weeks into the program. After that, the next 3 weeks have a personality that we have a little bit of recovery of that endurance build for a few days. And then you have about 2.5 weeks where the special source strength endurance work is highly present. Strength-based running, low cadence, maximal or very strong effort, where we're hitting very high load and it's strength endurance focused. So even though you're 7-8 weeks away from your Ironman, you've just padded yourself with a bunch of confidence building miles. Now you don't have to hit 5, 6, 7 hour bike rides. You can do some highly specific, highly valuable strength endurance work that you can double down on those values, doing the strength running that translates to flat running, which is really the hills are your speed work. That's the chance to actually double down on what we believe in. That strength endurance is so, so critical. So you have multiple weeks in a row, but you can't do too much of the heavy strength endurance work without getting a little bit flat and fatigued. So we give you 2 to 2.5 weeks of that. And then what we call is a transition week where we have you freshen up again. And we have you do a little bit of speed work, a little bit of lighter work, take a lot of the strength endurance out. And this is where a lot of athletes might actually go and hit a race. They might actually go and do a race on their way to their Ironman or on their way to their key half Ironman. It's a wonderful time coming off of strength endurance work that we might plug in for a race. For you guys, it's either just a little bit of a freshen up, a little bit of speed, and suddenly now you've gone through confidence building miles, strength endurance, which is the special sauce, a little bit of a freshen up, and now you're 6 weeks away. So now we move back and we say, okay, you've got the strength endurance, you're feeling resilient, you've done a little bit of a freshen up. Now let's go to some classic Ironman or half Ironman race build stuff. We're going to go simulator style. We are going to force you to do some 4, 5, 6 hour bike rides with 30, 40, 50, 60, 75-minute runs off. We're going to have the balance of strength endurance embedded in there. Yes, Ironman training, but instead of doing 2 by 90 minutes of Ironman, we might have you combine some heavy strength endurance, some fast cadence, very strong work, and Ironman following, so that we retain what we believe is the special sauce, or I believe I should say, but we still embed some very, very good simulator work, some wonderful opportunity to actually practice your fueling, to have a bit more of a race simulator, to have you actually be able to run off the bike up to and above your race effort very, very quickly so that you get used to it. And you go through a couple of weeks of that. And that's another opportunity to bank some miles, albeit much stronger miles than you did at the top of the program. So now suddenly you are 3 weeks out of your race. You're up just before your key race. And the couple of weeks before, we want to start to peel out some of the load. We want to peel out some of the fatigue. So we give you a race simulation. For some athletes, that might actually be a chance to go and hit in a local Olympic distance. It might even be a half Ironman if you're on the way to an Ironman, if that's the way your race program fits. But we start to transition to speed. We remove all of the strength endurance because we can't afford to have any heavy legs going into your race. We want you fresh, we want you fast, we want it to be different. And we've managed to retain the pipeline of strength endurance through the earlier part of the program. So we have a little bit of a fresh week. That weekend is your last chance to hit a very, very strong block. And then 2 weeks out, well, that's effectively the start of your race preparation. I'm not a fan of taper. I prefer race sharpening, race preparation, but if you love to call it taper, we start to build in, we transition to no more fitness gain. We're looking for sharpening, we're looking for feel-good training, the stuff that you're good at, and finally, you go and hit your race. And if you have that cycle, I think that it's a much improved, not to say the last was bad by any stretch, I don't want to put forth the message that we were failing, but it's a much improved cycle that can contain some really familiar workouts that you can go and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, so that your focus can be less on understanding the workout, but actually on just executing with the intent. But it includes and retains some of the strength endurance that we do at the top of each year. It's enough race-specific work to be race-specifically ready, but it won't get you flat. And it's a very, very easy way for you or me or us, the Purple Patch team, to manage your race season. And so it bubbles out. Now, it's not random, it's tested. We sent the pros through multiple cycles, and they are our living laboratory of what works because they're less influenced by life. And so we can understand the training response at that top level and then apply it to the everyday people. So we've gone through multiple cycles of this. And so far, very, very happy and confident enough to sit here and say, this is a fantastic way. It's a great way. So as you start to move towards your race-specific builds over the coming months, as you start to get into race-specific, your last 8 weeks before your key race and your Ironman, your last 10 or 11 weeks before, an Ironman 73, 10, 11 weeks before your Ironman, start to look for these patterns, start to look for the naming of the weeks. I'm going to frame this in Coach's Bulletin this week so that you can understand, appreciate, let it marinate, see how it feels to you, ask questions when you come on next week onto this session, and we can take it from there. But I think it's important for you guys to understand the thinking, to understand how I like to go about things. And it's important to understand that we're always evolving and always looking for a fresh look and a different way of taking good and making it better so that it becomes better and then ultimately, hopefully, becomes best. And then by the time we get there, we'll probably have to rethink it all over again, because just when you think you got it worked out, it's probably time to start refining it again. So that's my quick 30 minutes on race-specific planning. Crosses all disciplines. It crosses Olympic distance, Ironman, half Ironman. I know that I always tend to talk in terms of Ironman and half Ironman, but it crosses all disciplines. It's just the way that it's expressed, obviously specific to the demands of those events. But we've got a very good crew on here today. I want to be able to ask everyone questions. And so who shall we start with today? Who we will start with today is someone that I always leave till the last. And so I'm not going to today, Uncle Phil. You can ask your question first today.
Oh, boy.
If you have a question.
Well, I was so overwhelmed with the speech you just gave us.
I think your microphone is breaking up.
Yeah, I know. Would it help me running a couple miles during the week after school, like 7 p.m.?
Yes, if it's very low stress and it's the first thing to go, if it accumulates. But those super low, easy 2 miles additional, they're just resilience builders. So within the context of you wanting to shine, and as long as it doesn't erode the other stuff, if it's easy and workable, especially with the summer lights, it's really good. And what it's a great place to do is go and run to your local park, do some of the step-ups that we've shown you before, do maybe some activation, some strides, think about form, maybe a couple of little hill sprints just to think about form, and then run home easy. So go and do some play stuff like that. That's a good opportunity. The other thing that it's good for occasionally is just therapy. Go and do a little bit of meditation, go and run, and don't even think about anything. Don't think about triathlon. Don't think about form. Just go and enjoy the sunset. So there's sort of almost two personalities, which is an opportunity to really think about good elements of form. Another one where it's like, you know what, this is resilience, and this is my little gift to myself that I'm going to go away and just work through something in my head, or not think about anything, or think about how Indiana is paradise, and the confusion of why not more people would move to Indiana. Why do they insist on living in California when you can live in Indiana and the cornfields?
How true.
It's a very good question. Let's go to Super Steve, who qualified to the Ironman 70.3 World Championships this weekend through the back door a little bit. Well done, Steve. Congratulations on a very good race after a very stressful week of work. So we won't have a race report here, please, but let me know if you have any questions.
Not really. I'm still in shock, basically. It was a tough week, and the only thing I'd say is, even if you don't feel great, because I didn't feel great for probably a minute of the whole thing, you just have to soldier on and let Paul's voice or Matt's voice roll around in your head enough that you do things. And I actually, for the first time, incorporated walk breaks, which Paul set me straight about those. And so, I've only been with you guys since December. I'm pretty happy. I'm still swimming like a 6-year-old, but I want to get to be an 8-year-old. But I'll be seeing you in about a week, so you'll be able to turn that around for me, I hope.
We'll be able to have a look at you, but it's super, Steve, and you're dead right. And for everyone else's benefit, I think you had pretty much the busiest week of work almost that
ever.
Number of operations that you had to go through and manage and execute. So one of those weeks that probably the worst preparation for a week of racing that you could possibly have, and yet you still didn't let your perceived level of fatigue interrupt your real opportunity to go and execute a race still. And so well done. It's a little inspiration to all of us. And we look forward to having you go and race to your full resources without life interfering. But really good stuff. So it's great to hear. And Chattanooga, here we come. Well done.
Thank you.
Jen Pelosi, how are we doing, sis?
Well, I made a kind of last minute decision Saturday not to do the hits on Sunday, because I was up there Saturday and saw that, complete, mess. And I was already advised, Michael told me not to do the whole thing, not to do the run, because I've only been running like twice since February because I was getting over a problem. Mm-hmm. So once I saw that it was going to be 40 degrees and all, and I really haven't been in cold water, I thought, I was trying to say, well, Matt wants us to carry out the intention of the day. So instead, I had an amazing 40-mile bike ride on the Silverado Trail, trying to stay in my aero bars and really helping my bike riding. So I thought it was an okay trade that I didn't do the race, and I had a fantastic ride in good position. So maybe that was the right thing. Of course, I feel guilty because I look at the results, and I would have been third in my age group, but I have to turn the page.
Would have been if you had executed the day that you had potential to execute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was very, very cold. I mean, 30 or 40 people were hospitalized up there.
Yeah.
So I will say most of those people that would have been hospitalized was probably through lack of preparation. And it's, not being well equipped, and this is by no means do I say that as a criticism to anyone that was in hospital, because you just don't realize until you have the experience to go through. And I'll never forget Ironman Lake Tahoe a few years ago when it was extremely cold, under freezing. They said it was 34 degrees, but actually it was 25 degrees at the race start. And when they came out of the water, and some of the people that got onto the bike with no extra clothing rode and were pulled off with hypothermia, it was clear lack of preparation. Mm-hmm. And very cold. So Jen, I don't think that was a bad decision at all for what you were trying to get out of the weekend. And globally, I like people to attack things and go and do it and prepare. But
I've never had done that ever in 12 years. And I didn't want to have to report it.
Well, a little bit of guilt is never a bad thing.
All right.
So, you're just lucky you're not in my swim. If PJ had done it, on the other hand. Now, a year ago, I said to PJ in transition at St. George, I looked up at the sky and I said, I'm your coach, PJ. It's going to look like it's going to be pretty warm out there. You don't need arm warmers. And then it snowed on the top of Snow Canyon, and I destroyed his race for him. So he's never let me live it down. Oh. Let's go to PJ as a question.
Well, yeah, you told me I wouldn't need the arm warmers or the vest, and then it rained for the entire bike ride, and it was 30 degrees and a lot of wind, but I ended up PRing on the day, so you didn't ruin my day.
That's right, I didn't ruin your day.
You just made it incredibly less comfortable than I had intended it to be.
I took out all the enjoyment factor. That's what
enjoyment for you.
A lot of enjoyment for me, I have to say, apart from your moaning afterwards. But well done.
Man, my question is not so much the preparation, but like the recovery week afterwards. It seemed this week, compared to in the last couple of years that I've been with Purple Patch, that we had a bit more intensity and tougher workouts than we have in the past the week following. Is that something new, or is that I mean, I saw it and it was okay, but like Thursday swim just absolutely destroyed me for the rest of the day. Like I couldn't go do my run in the evening. I mean, it was really crappy outside, which made it easier to not go do. But like, honestly, I felt just completely torn apart for the rest of the day.
Yeah, there is a little bit more work, and I overrode the general theme with the thirsty swim, and so that's not really on a part of a general program. I just threw you in and thought, well, we'll see how he does. So I didn't pull you out of, as I typically would, well, PJ or whoever it might be has just raced, and I'm going to say, hey, PJ, do it a lane down or do it with fins on and make it smooth. I said, screw him, let's see how he does, and let's put him in there and go from there. So sounds like a good decision because it gives them a bet. But in general terms, I think the first thing, and it comes with a little bit of athlete ownership and responsibility. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples because we just talked about cold, and so we're talking about hot as well. Any week, let's take a step in a lead up to a race. One of the things around athlete empowerment where I think everyone appreciates that I'm not a fan of athletes just being like dogs where they just give the food that's just being put in front of them. I think in a lead up to the race, when I talked about the race build and I said, it's now 2 weeks and I don't like to call it taper, but I call it sharpening. There's no more fitness games. You want to do the stuff that you're good at that makes you feel good. Part of the race build that we talked about is there's a whole bunch of opportunity in there where even in the workouts we say, prep day, do whatever makes you feel good. Because over the course of 11 weeks, over the course of a season, over the course of a lifetime of athletics, you should start to understand that and be empowered, because what makes PJ tick for the big session the next day might be different from Phil and a bit different from Jordan. And there's no way, unless I'm looking at every single athlete every single day in person, of really knowing that. And it still won't be as good as what you know as the athlete, what actually makes me feel good emotionally and physically. And so in the last couple of weeks into a race, you should feel more and more confident about, yeah, I'm going to do that, but I could do with a little more, I could do a little less. And it has to be done through the lens of making yourself feel good, not I'm going to do more because I'm a bit worried about my fitness and so therefore I'm going to pile on miles for a confidence builder. So it's all about feeling good, and that should stem out of your previous experiences over the course of the program leading up to it. Well, the same thing applies on the backside of a race. There is a little bit more load on the backside of the race this year. There is a bit more of an acceleration, but with that, I still have the athlete of, look, it's going to be different with every race. You might go through a race, and if your pacing is perfect and you build the run and you finish really strong, it'll be a great day, but you actually might recover from it really quickly. Versus if you go through a race and you've overcooked the bike a little bit and you go really deep and you have to hang on, you have a little bit of an explosion, but you hang on to the grim death in the last 3 or 4 miles and you have an equally great day, that second situation might take a lot more out of you because of the way that the day went. Either it's the way that you executed, or coming back to what I talked about before, the conditions. If it's a very, very cold race, Napa hits, Challenge Melbourne this weekend, extremely cold, those athletes are going to be butchered. They are going to be butchered relative to actually if they went and did a really hot race. Quite often a hot race is really hard and claustrophobic on the day, but you actually recover quite quick from it. Unless your thermoregulator gets blown, as happened at Galveston last weekend with one of our athletes who got some form of heat exhaustion, where they're going to need 10 days of low stress because they actually had sort of not heat stroke, but heat exhaustion. So how long it takes to recover is individual. And again, it's feel good. And again, you have the right and option to build into work, back out of work, pull work out. So that 3-week module, and that sounds like a lot, but that into 2 weeks into a key race and a week out of it, there has to be a bit of an element of athlete management. And it's either in collaboration with your one-to-one coach or self-served a little bit. And as you go through and you become more experienced, you become better than that. And the only thing that trumps it is if I dump you in a lane swimming on Thursday and beat you up, and then you just do what daddy says. But there's still a little bit of a management of that. Does that help? So
yeah, no. I mean, that answers the question, and it's kind of what I've learned over the years. But I just noticed that the week after plan looked different than it has in years past.
Yeah.
As far as like the intensity levels and the duration of swims, runs, and even the bike. So yeah, that's what my question was around.
Cool. Good stuff. I just wanted to draw your question to a bigger topic, which I thought might be helpful. Super Dave, you were first on, so you deserve to ask the question.
I got a few little questions. Swims, you say toys. Any toys?
Swims, you said, you just broke up when you said it. Swims, toys.
Yeah, and your swims are now denoted as toys, your choice. Any toys of limit, Moko and Pool Boy and that stuff?
Yeah, toys being fins and paddles, pulling gear, etc.
Okay. And then the second question is more / suggestion. I kind of saw you guys at videos, and it seems like you're doing new workout videos. Let's go with that. Any special video for people that have a TRX or access to a TRX?
In the strength work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that video shoot was actually for the upcoming book. So it was it's actually 21 exercises, and it's specifically designed for, there's basically 7 exercises which each have a progression of 3. So entry level, intermediate, advanced, over the course of 7 categories, and it's designed for athletes where they can do it at their gym or in their kitchen or in their hotel room. And it's short and sweet. There's 7 things that are sort of the boulders, the building blocks of, if you can only do this, this is what you do over the course of 20 minutes. So it's great for the traveling athlete, the time-starved athlete, etc. So we actually had 2 TRX exercises that we decided to take out, mostly because of the studio setup and we wanted to make it truly, I wanted to make it truly traveling. Although one of the things we're doing is we're completely redoing the strength program. So we're going to make it a little more accessible and a little bit like this, combined with then if you have access to a gym, and that will include TRX exercises, Dave. So the answer is no, it didn't, and yes, it will, if that makes sense. Ali, hello.
Hi there. Quick question. I'm trying to figure out whether I'm overreaching or if I'm simply pushing harder than I'm accustomed to. I did 2 weeks ago, I had my first race of the season. It was a sprint. I'm 2 months out from my first Olympic. I want to play this right. I found myself when I was pushing really hard on 2 separate occasions last week for the sprint, the Wednesday spin and the Sunday swim. I had a crying jag in the middle of the workout when I was working hard. I've felt kind of achy and tired, but at the same time, I also feel strong enough where I feel like I'm really meeting the workouts well. But this emotional wackiness, I don't know what to make of it.
When you asked me the question, you said you asked me the question up front, then you gave me the color, which was really important. But you could have just asked me the question because I already knew the answer.
Okay.
So therefore, just by answering it like that, you know the answer. Go forth and conquer. You're doing great.
Okay, just making sure that I'm playing it right. That's all I wanted to do.
If any door that you see globally in life, I want you to whack your head against it and then open the door and walk through. We're breaking down doors, sis.
Working at it. Okay, good.
We're breaking down doors. So tears are normal. And in fact, Jordan just wrote that on the side. Tears are normal. So it's all right.
I was concerning my lane mates on Sunday, so I figured I better ask. Plus, Tim was like, "What's this?" on Wednesday. So
I like delivering tears in the swim. It's all good. Jordan, let's hear from you, sis.
I don't think I have any questions really. I'm trying not to go to sleep right now because I have severe jet lag.
You shouldn't have come on here if you were trying to avoid jet lag. I'm sleep inducing, I promise you.
Yeah. I guess for me, this is going to be one of the first times I've ever attempted to do 2 Ironmans in a single year. I usually qualify or try to qualify and then race if I've qualified. So I'm a little worried about getting that motivation to train hard again. But I guess it's pretty early still, so
yeah,
I have plenty of time to recover, then get back into it.
you've actually done it a great way. I think you've got great fitness. You can really be patient. You can go and do some fast training. And the key for you is to not get too Kona specific focused in the next month or so. You know, you gotta go through and say, okay, it's one of the things we'll talk about offline, which is, all right, what do you need to get done before July, before actually saying, okay, I'm getting ready for Kona. Because if you start,
oh yeah, no, I agree with that. I rather like focus on. I mean, I've got 3 shorter races: Santa Rosa, Alcatraz, and then a couple of Olympics. So it's. I think the goal should be to focusing on like high intensity to some extent, and get that kind of high end in a good position, and then bring the endurance in July, August.
And beyond your sort of hard work, grit, and effort, and great execution of the training, I think one of the things that's just worth bubbling up to everyone that I think has been really important for you over the last few years was strength and conditioning. I think that's been a key element for you. And so we go back. One of the things you go back to in the summer is it's pretty heavy focus on that as well. But
yeah, I think that's one important piece, because I had just some injury niggles, like a sore hamstring, and it's little things like that I no longer have as a result of being very committed to 2 times a week of strength and conditioning. And then the other piece that I think's made a huge, huge difference for me is nutrition. And I know you hop on about that a lot, and I thought I was eating pretty healthy, but I definitely was not eating nearly enough protein to support the volume of training I was doing. Yeah. And so, I think that's a good lesson for a lot of people. Like, I thought I had a pretty healthy diet. I didn't shop down the aisles. I didn't eat fast food. I ate lots of like vegetables and protein, but it still wasn't good enough. And so that's made a huge step change in my training the last 3-4 months.
It's quite amazing if you really are training heavily, especially for things like Ironman, the amount of caloric support that you need for that, and very good quality caloric support is I think very important. But yeah, it's not just your injuries.
This week's still pizza and ice cream.
Well, that's good stuff. It's not just injuries it avoids you. The way that you stand, the way that you carry yourself has evolved over the last couple of years. So it's robust. Not the most feminine word, but it's a good word. It's nice. So strong, robust, standing tall, all good stuff. Would anyone else like to ask questions before we hit the eject button?
I just want to quickly mention that I was swimming in Miami, and my purple patch hat in the pool was noticed. At the Four Seasons, there's a guy there. Oh, are you training with purple patch? So, I told him. He recognized it.
He said, yeah, and I know Matt himself, and it's immense disappointment.
Exactly.
Stuff, I tell you, it's Wizard of Oz stuff.
Yeah.
That's always fun. Mary, are you there in Australia? I don't see your camera, but if you are there and you want to ask a question, feel free to unmute and ask. I missed you somehow. She's not there. She might be there and listening and not able to ask questions. All right, guys, that's a fun one. On Thursday we have David Giardini, who's a real personality, and one of our professional athletes, emerging developmental athlete, already done very well. But the tidbit for David is, if you think about the background of becoming a professional triathlete. Well, David, if you've ever seen some of those videos of the kite surfers and the wind surfers that jump off the waves and do flips, that's David's background. He used to be a professional kite surfer and spent a lot of time, grew up in Italy. So we won't understand half of what he says, but grew up in Italy, spent a lot of time in Hawaii, fantastic personality, a great athlete, and really interesting. And brings something refreshing, I think, to the sport. Is a great guy to work with and has already evolved really, really well. So we're going to chat to him on Thursday. He's based in Boulder. Paul Buick will be with the pros in Boulder this week. So so Paul might be back. He's flying in today. All right, guys, that'll be Thursday, and then we'll rock and roll from there. So take care, and we'll on from there. Cheers, guys.